We continue now at the top of Daf Memheim and Beis in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 45b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had a case where one father said to another father, he gave him a cup of wine, and he said, with this cup of wine, your daughter should be mekudeshes to my son. And the case came before Ravina, and Ravina said, even according to the one who says, let's say you have a girl that's a minor that accepts Kiddushin, so we say it might be a Kiddushin because maybe the father would agree to that Kiddushin, but Shema Nisratza Haben Lo Amrinam. But we don't say maybe the son would agree to the Kiddushin. That we don't say, and therefore in this case it's not going to be a good Kiddushin. Again, if one father gives to the other father this cup of wine and says that with this cup of wine your daughter should be mekudeshes to my son, we say that's not a good Kiddushin because we don't say maybe the son would agree to it. And Rashi explains, Shema Nisratza Haben b'Kiddushin shekidesh lo ha'av shelo midaito. This is the case of Kiddushin, where the father does a Kiddushin on behalf of the son, but without the knowledge of the son. Lo amrinon da'av b'Kiddushay bito b'chol dehu nichole. We don't say, well, it's true by the situation of the Kiddushin of the daughter that maybe it's good for the father, because that's different. The tav l'meitav tandu, because when it comes to women, as we've said earlier, they prefer to be married. They want to be with someone else rather than be alone. Aval gavra, but when it comes to a man, dayek v'nosiv, so he's gonna make sure before he gets married, he's not just gonna marry anyone. Uven eino b'reshus aviv l'kadesh lo isha shelo b'shlichus. When a son is not in the reshus of his father, that his father, without appointing him as a shliach, his father can just be mekadesh a woman on his behalf. That we don't say, and we don't say Shema Nisratza Haben, and so therefore again, that's why it's not a good Kiddushin. And the Gemara continues, Amri le Rabbanan le Ravina. But the Rabbanan, they said to Ravina, V'dilma shliach shavia, but maybe there's another concern. Maybe the son actually appointed the father to be a shliach. So we don't say Shema Nisratza Haben. We don't say maybe the son would agree to it, but how do we know the father wasn't appointed as a shliach? And to that the Gemara says, Lo chatzevinish l'shavuye li'avu shliach. A person is not going to have so much chutzpah to appoint his father as a shliach. But the Gemara says, V'dilma artsuye artse kameh. But maybe what happened was the son essentially told the father that he wants to marry this girl. He let it be known to the father that that's what he wants. And the Gemara says, Amar le Rabba Bar Shimi said to him, Beferish Amar Mar. The master said explicitly, "De lo savar loha de Rav Shmuel," that he doesn't hold of this idea of Rav and Shmuel, meaning to say he doesn't hold of this idea of Shema Nisratza Ha'av, and it's actually true. If we would say Shema Nisratza Ha'av, then there would be a concern over here of Shema Nisratza Haben. But Ravina does not hold of Rav and Shmuel; he doesn't hold Shema Nisratza Ha'av. And Rashi here says, V'dilma artsuye artzi ben kamei oviv. Maybe again, the son said to his father, he explained to him, V'gila lo daito, he said to him that yes, shu chafetz ba, that he does want to marry her. V'av nasa lo shliach me'ela v'zachin lodem shlo b'fanav. Since the father knew that that's what the son wants, the father can become a shliach on his own through zachin lodem shlo b'fanav. And the Gemara said, indeed, that is a good possibility. And the real reason why Ravina is not concerned Shema Nisratza Haben is because Mar, the master, meaning Ravina, Beferish Shamati Mimenu, I heard Beferish from him. To lo savar le de Rav Shmuel, he doesn't hold of Rav and Shmuel of Choshen Shema Nisratza Haben. We're not concerned that maybe the father agreed to the Kiddushin by the girl that's a minor. V'kol shekein l'shema aso haben shliach, and therefore the same would certainly be true in this case of the son making the father a shliach. Ela imkein shamanu, unless we heard that that's what happened, we're not concerned with it. Now, Ravina, when he issued his ruling, he said even according to the one who says Shema Nisratza Ha'av. So now that's not really true, because really we're saying that Ravina doesn't hold Shema Nisratza Ha'av, and that's why he's not concerned. So that he was just saying it l'Ravcha d'milsa k'yecha d'lekapla minei. He just said that in order that they accept what he's saying. That's why he said that. But really he was relying on the fact that he doesn't hold of Shema Nisratza Ha'av by the daughter that's a minor, and that's why he's not concerned in this case as well. And the Gemara continues, Hahu Gavra de Kaddish Bekisha de Yarka Bashuka. There was a man who was Makadesh, a girl, this is talking about a young girl, a girl that's a minor. He used a bundle of vegetables and he was Makadesh her in the marketplace. Amar Ravina says, Afilu Lamando Amar Choshen Shema Nisratza Ha'av, even according to the one who says that we are concerned maybe the father would agree to the Kiddushin, and maybe it is a Kiddushin by a girl that's a minor, Hani Mili Derech Kavod. That's only true if the Kiddushin took place in a dignified manner. Aval Derech Bizayin Lo, but if it took place in a degrading manner, then we would not be concerned Shema Nisratza Ha'av. And the Gemara continues, Amarle Rav Acha midifti l'Ravina. Rav Acha midifti said to Ravina, Bizoyin demai, what exactly is degrading about using the bundle of vegetables in the marketplace? I bizoyin de yarki, bizoyin de shuk. Is it degrading because vegetables were used, or is it degrading because it was done in the marketplace? And nafkamina, the difference is the kaddish bechaspa v'shuka. What if the kiddushin took place with money, but in the marketplace? Or bekisha de yarka bebeis, or what if it took place with bundle of vegetables, but it was in the house? So what is considered to be the bizoyin over here? Amar Lei said to him, Idi v'idi derech bizayin, who both of them represent a bizayin, meaning it's a bizayin that it takes place with a bundle of vegetables, and it's also a bizayin that it should take place in the marketplace. And the Gemara continues, Hahu do amar likrivoy v'hi amra likriva. There was a case where a man said that I want the daughter, this is talking about the daughter who's a minor, I want her to marry my relative, and she, meaning his wife, said that she wanted her daughter to marry her relative. Kaftei ado amar lo, so she pressured him until he finally said to have a likriva, he finally agreed and he said, let her marry your relative, meaning the husband said to the wife, will allow the daughter, he'll want the daughter to marry his wife's relative. Ada'achli v'shasi, then as they were eating and drinking, asa karive be'igra v'kitsha. So his relative actually came, and he was in the upper floor, and he was makadesh her. And so the question is, would the father have agreed? Because initially he wanted her to marry his relative, and now he ended up relenting and saying her relative, but now it ended up his relative was makadesh her. Is that going to be a kiddushin or not? Amar Abaya says it's not going to be a kiddushin. Ksiv she'eris Yisrael lo yasu avla v'lo yidabru chazav. It says that in Klal Yisrael they don't say lies. If he said he wants it to be to her relative, to his wife's relative, that's what he meant. Therefore, we assume that he would not agree to the kiddushin to his relative. And Rava gives a different reason why it's not a good kiddushin. Rava says chazaka. There's a presumption. Ein adam toreach besuudum afsi. The person is not going to take the effort to prepare a whole meal, to prepare a festive feast, to celebrate a wedding, and then it's all lost. It's all for nothing because now a different person came along and was mekadesh the girl. Certainly that's not the case. If he was preparing the wedding for her relative, that's what he wanted. And the Gemara says, "My beinayu, what's the difference between the two answers?" Both Abai and Rava agree that the father would not agree to this kiddushin with his relative. And the Gemara says, "Ika beinayu, there's a difference between them." The lotarach, let's say he didn't take the bother to prepare the festive meal in honor of the wedding. So in that case, again, Rava just says there's a chazaka that if he's already preparing a whole meal, he wouldn't agree to the kiddushin with the other individual. If he didn't prepare a whole meal, there is no chazaka according to Rava. But according to Abaya, he said that he wanted the daughter to marry his wife's relative, and therefore we take him at his word. And regardless of whether he was preparing the festivity or not, regardless, we're going to say it's not a kiddushin to his relative. And the Gemara continues at the two das, Niskadsha ledas avia. Let's say she accepts a kiddushin and it's with the consent of her father, so she's certainly mekudeshes on a doraisa level. V'halach avia lemedinas hayom. Then her father travels overseas. He travels far away. V'yomda v'nisis, and then she goes ahead and she gets married. She has chuppah. And generally speaking, we say that a girl, if she marries a kohen, she's not allowed to eat truma until there's actually a nisuin. On a doraisa level, the kiddushin alone allows her to have the truma, but on a derabanan level, the rabbanan said she has to wait till she gets married. So Amar Rav said that in this case where she had the nisuin without the consent of her father, and her father was far away, ochelas betruma, she can eat truma unless her father comes, until her father comes and protests. But if he does not protest, we assume since the kiddushin was with his consent, the marriage also is going to be good. Ravasi says, Eino chelis, she cannot eat truma, Shema yavo avia v'yimcha, because we're afraid, we're concerned, maybe her father will come and protest the nisuin, he'll protest the marriage. V'nimtzes zora ochelis betruma lemafrei. It's going to come out that a woman who's not a kohen, not married to a kohen, is eating truma retroactively. And the Gemara continues, Have uvda, there was a case like this. V'chosh l'Rav l'hadar Ravasi. And Rav actually, even though Rav himself said that she can be lenient and eat truma, but he was concerned for the opinion of Ravasi, and he said that she should not eat truma since Ravasi said she should not eat truma. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says, Umo de Rav admits she'imim mesa, that in this case again where she gets married without the consent of her father is far away. So if she dies, Eino Yorsha, he's not able to inherit her in that case. Normally, in order for a husband to inherit his wife, there has to be a nisuin. And in this case, we're not really sure about the nisuin. We're not really sure if it's a good nisuin. So even though Rav said she can eat truma, but he does not inherit her because uki memona bechezkas mari. The money has to stay in the possession of its original owner. You can't assume that it transfers over to the husband. Again, in this case, we're not really sure whether the husband, whether her father would agree to the nisuin. And the Gemara continues, Niskad shaladas. Let's say you have again a case where the Kiddushin was with the consent of her father. V'nises shalo ladas ve'avia kan. And it's the same case. She gets married without the consent of her father, but in this case, her father didn't travel away. Her father is actually over here. So what happens in this situation? Rav Huna Amar Eino Ocheles. Rav Huna says she's not allowed to eat truma. It's not a good nisuin. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar Ocheles. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba says she could eat truma. We can assume that it is a good nisuin. Rav Huna Amar Eino Ocheles. And the Gemara explains. Rav Huna says she's not allowed to eat truma. It's not a good nisuin. V'afilu l'Rav. Now even according to Rav, the Amar Ocheles, who says that she's allowed to eat truma in the case where the father is far away. So Hasam Hu de Lo Isei La'av, over there she's allowed to eat truma. The father's not present. We can assume it's a good nisuin. Avalacha, but over here, the Isei La'av, where the father is here, hide the ishtik, the fact that he's saying nothing, the fact that he's silent, mirsach rosach, that indicates that he's angry, that he does not consent. If he agreed to the marriage, he would tell us. The fact that he doesn't say so, that shows that he does not agree to the marriage, and that's why she cannot eat truma. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba says, Ochela, she could eat truma. And the other way around. V'afilu l'Ravasi, even according to Ravasi, Damer ein ocheles, who says that when the father is far away, she can't eat truma because we're concerned maybe he doesn't agree. Hasamhu d'shema yavo aviyimcha, there it's because he might come. Her father might come and protest. Aval but over here, midashasik, from the fact that he's quiet, isnuche isnachale, it means that he agrees to the nisuin. He would protest if he would not agree to the nisuin, and therefore she's allowed to eat truma in this case, according to Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. And the Gemara continues, Niskad shalola dasavia. Let's say she has a Kiddushin not with the consent of her father, so she was certainly not married with, it should not be a marriage on a doraisa level. Benisa shalola das, and then she had Nisuin also, not with the consent of her father. V'avia hakan, and her father is over here. He hasn't said anything. Rav Huna Amar Ocheles. Rav Huna says she's allowed to eat truma. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar ein ocheles. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba says she's not allowed to eat truma. And the Gemara says, Amar Ula says, Had Rav Huna, this ruling of Rav Huna, that in this case, not only was the marriage without the consent of her father, but even the Kiddushin was not with the consent of her father, and yet Rav Huna says still she can eat truma. That which Rav Huna says that, Kechometz l'shinayim uchashan leinayim, that's like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, it's very difficult to understand. Hashta umahasam, now, if there in that case, meaning in the case where we know there was a Kiddushin d'oraisa, there was just a question of the Nisuin, the Kiddushin d'oraisa amrit loacha, we said in a case where there was a Kiddushin midoraisa, and Rav Huna was actually the one that was strict in that case above. Rav Huna said, if you have a case where she has Kiddushin with the consent of her father, and she marries without the consent of her father, and her father is here, Rav Huna says she's not allowed to eat truma. So in that case where we know there was a Kiddushin d'oraisa, she can't eat truma. Hach over here, lo kol shekain, here certainly, where there's not even on a d'oraisa level of Kiddushin, certainly she should not be eating truma. Why does Rav Huna say that she can eat truma in this case? And Rashi explains, Umo de Rav admits that's where the Gemara was making a distinction between her eating truma and the husband actually inheriting her. Even though when it comes to truma, we say there's a chazaka shenisratze b'chuppah, we assume that the father did agree to the chuppah and she's allowed to eat truma. Hasam hu di name alone isratze, there the reason why we let her eat truma is because even if he didn't agree, achla midoraisa, on a doraisa level, she still could eat truma, even if there's no nisuin. The arusa ocheles b'truma devar Torah, because on a doraisa level, in arusa is allowed to eat truma. It's just the Rabbanan that said that she should be a nesua. Avol inyan Yerusha, but when it comes to inheritance, devo'inan she'ero, where it needs to be she'ero, there needs to be a nisuin. Moda de'eno elakara. So there, Rav would admit she's only like she had erisin. The mason, if she dies, eno yarsh, he doesn't inherit her. To kevin the mesaf galon in misratze b'chuppah olav, since we're not sure whether the father agreed to the chuppah or not. Ukimna mamona b'cheskas mara, we keep the money in the chazaka of its original owner, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Memvav Amud Aleph.